Video Game Book Club podcast. Today we're starting our discussion on Katana Zero. I'm your host Marcus, and joining me today as always are the homies. First off we have Trevor. Next we have Greg.
What's up?
And last but not least we have a guest returning, my brother Trevor. What were you on? Were you on something earlier this year, or was it last? You were on Titanfall 2, right?
I did Titanfall 2.
So we decided for the month of December we'd have like a fan selection game. So we presented my brother with 3 options, and this was the game he chose, which was Greg's choice. So I'm going to kick it off to Greg so he can introduce.
All right. So there wasn't a whole lot of information on the studio or a lot of the background on the game, so this is going to be kind of brief. But I ended up picking Katana Zero just because it was one of the games that was on my pile of shame. And I saw one of my friends streaming it one day, and just kind of the art style and the music kind of had me intrigued, and I bought it and just kind of never got around to playing it. So time to check it out. Katana Zero was programmed by one person by the name of Justin Standard, who also is the found studio ASCIIsoft. Development on Katana Zero took roughly, and Justin used Game Maker Studio 2 to develop it. ASCIIsoft also did a couple other titles. I'm not too familiar with them, but they did Tower of Heaven, which is a handheld style adventure. Pause Ahead, which is described as a jumping and pausing action game. Overpowered, which is a platformer that was developed in 72 hours, which is kind of like a 16-bit style platform. Katana Zero is a 2D action game where the player controls a samurai-esque assassin by the name of Subject Zero, and he completes various contracts given to him by players have the ability to slow time temporarily, which is a power that Subject Zero has from the use of a drug known as Chronos. The game was well received with 83 on Metacritic, and to date has sold 500,000 copies. It also was nominated for several Best of the Year awards, such as Best Independent Game in 2019 and Excellence in Design at the Independent Game Festival Award. DLC is in the works to continue the story, which is supposed to answer some of the burning questions, and that's all I got.
And so you said that you chose this game because it was on your pile of shame?
Yeah.
So, Trevor, how come, what about this game stood out in comparison to the other options that we...
I can't remember the other 2 ones, but I know like their names.
Oh, I can let you know.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I also won't. I just remember when I looked at them, which if you want to go ahead, man. But I remember looking at all the 3 games, looked the most fun to play.
Wow.
And
I'm trying to remember what I put in there.
I like the artwork for what I had saw from this game. Like, so I like the colors in this game as well.
Pretty colors.
You got it on hand, Marcus?
I actually deleted it from my thing. I know that my game was super hot. And you're saying super hot looked lame? All right.
No, super hot didn't look lame, but that's a game where I think that one is VR, and I would want to.
Well, you're wrong. You don't have. It is in VR, but you don't have to play it in VR.
I know you don't have to, but I'm saying like if I was going to play that game,
sure,
it looked like it'd be more fun.
And Trevor's game was Yester Grace, so I understand why you skipped that one.
Yeah, the name sounds garbage.
I don't think I even knew at that time who was going to be playing it. So
yeah, that's
if I had
fair.
known
like,
it was going to be Trevor, I would have, suggested something else.
He would have brought out the heavy hitters.
Trevor be weighting his list depending on who is presented to.
Like, man, I know I can get this one passed.
Yep. But yeah, I think when we had decided we were going to guess thing, there was a couple of people that we had in mind, and I think I hit you up first, or maybe you were the first person to get back with me. I think actually was what happened. So, just was curious. I'm not sad that we played this game. Like, obviously, I would have preferred to play Super Hot, but this was a good, I guess, a secondary or backup option. I wouldn't have played this game otherwise.
Do you think that it was better?
Oh, we can get into that because I have some complaints. What did everybody play this on? I played this on PC.
Yeah, I played on PC as well.
PC, and I also keyboard. I think you could add the option.
Yeah, I did controller on PC.
Thanks, but I was the only one who picked this up on Switch.
I thought about it, but like it was just on sale when I think they were the same price, honestly.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, I wish I would have picked it up on Switch because this, kind of like we were talking about last month with Into the Breach, this would have been a fun game to kind of like dip in, knock out a couple of scenarios, and then go about my life.
I didn't realize it was on the Switch.
So, I think when I started playing this game, like, can I tell you guys? I mean, you guys are gonna know, but what does this game make you think about?
No, I mean that's obvious. I mean, do we have to?
I mean, it's not just us.
I mean, yeah, you get the. I guess the first thing that came to mind was Hotline Miami, right? Am I wrong in that?
Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest with you. Like, I have been struggling. Like, I have been going back and forth on. Sometimes I'm like, do I like this game because it's fun, or do I dislike this game because it's not Hotline Miami? And I have been struggling. I ended up I had talked to Dante a little bit about it because I knew that he had mentioned that he had started the game and didn't finish. And so when I got to a specific story beat in the game, I messaged him and said, "Is this where you stopped playing, or what was the deal with that?" And we talked about the game a little bit, and I don't know. It's hard for me to gauge this game on its own, and I'm like super like I feel extremely biased when I talk about this game because I'm like talking about it and trying to compare it in my head to Hotline Miami and telling myself this is a different game, but it's just like I end up saying, oh, this doesn't do this thing as well, or it doesn't do this thing as well, and like I've been struggling internally when I've thought about this game after playing it and even during playing it. Have any of you guys had any of that, or is it just me being the weirdo?
I think initially, like, you draw the comparison, but I don't know. For me, I kind of felt like the time slow mechanic did enough, and that like at least it kind of felt like a little bit. But I mean, I can get it though. I mean, I can see where you like comparing them so much, and it doesn't necessarily give you the semi. So
thank you.
It's a little different.
Yeah. And then also when you said that this game, look, I had no idea this was made by one person. When you said that this game took 6 years to make, and I just did like the math in my head, I'm like, that too. I'm like,
You know what's funny about that?
Go ahead.
He said that because obviously everybody makes that same comparison, but like I think I saw an article where he said he played the game and he doesn't remember much of it, but obviously some parts had to inspire him if it's like so close to it. But I think he said what made him really want to make this game was a Samurai Gun. I don't know if you guys remember that. I think that was like one of the Giant Bomb that was a game that influenced him.
Yeah, and so like with this game, I don't think that it is like straight up just a clone of Hotline Miami, but I just see a lot of clear through lines and influences, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And one of the things that I did after beating this game was looking. I sought out and I was like, let me look up some other let me look at Hotline Miami clones and kind of see what distinguishes those games and like what they bring to the table. And a lot of people were saying that this game has inspirations, but they wouldn't necessarily call it a clone because it does a lot of new things, kind of like you said with the slowdown mechanic, just the like it being a 2D side-scrolling game versus Hotline Miami being a top-down game. Yeah. Once I started seeing some of the other games that were clear, like same angle, same kind of gameplay, like kind of seeing some other examples, good and games that did it poorly, I was just kind of like, okay, like this game stands up on its own, and it's like I can better see it, or I can understand when people say like, yeah, I mean I can see it, but it didn't feel that way to me, because before I'm just like, what? No, you have to see it. There's no way you don't see it. Yeah. I'm just like a super huge like I was thinking about it, and I was just like, man, I think Hotline Miami might be like, it's like one of those games that I remember when I I think I showed it to you, Trevor, when you and your roommate came over when I was living in Birmingham, and I showed you guys. I was like, "You guys have to play this. Sit down at my computer, play this game." And I remember introducing it to you guys, and it's just like one of those games. Like I've done what I could to try to introduce it to like different people whenever I could.
Yeah, and there was Anthony. He liked it as well. And he got the games and played them, and yeah, that was the first time I was interested in the game, and I really like Hotline Miami. Yeah, and this game does definitely remind me of it. Mm-hmm. And there are, but like I didn't have that same issue with kind of distinguish it. But there was one thing in particular which, when we get into the gameplay, that I thought was pretty similar to it.
So let's do the low hanging fruit first. The music in this game bangs.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like I was I really dug the music in this game, and I think that this was all like, I don't want to say licensed, but like he used 2 specific artists, I think, for all the music in this game.
Yeah.
And it's definitely set a vibe. The game is kind of like a dystopic, like neo noir kind of like city. I think it's called New Mecca or something like that. And so it has like a very big, like heavy cyberpunk kind of, not cyberpunk 2077, but just that like aesthetic. And lots of like neon, like Hotline Miami and like that Miami Vice kind of vaporwave aesthetic, like color palette.
Wasn't it super sick that he puts the tape in the Walkman and starts like that?
That's what I wanted to say. But that little detail was so funny.
Can I tell you that was cool, but then it made me think of Baby Driver. I don't know if you guys saw that movie.
Yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
And it made me think of that, and I was like, wait, this game can't, like, I wonder if because you said this game took 6 years to make, and Baby Driver was, what, in the last year or two?
Yeah, something like that, fairly recent.
And I'm like, did he add this in later? Or like, that made me think of that, and I really like how he kind of implemented that. And there was a lot of, like I guess we're saying like distant future or whatever, but there was like, I mean, when you went to the level selector, like the continue, you would see VHS tapes of like the different levels, and whenever there was a heavy like CCTV kind of like camera style whenever you watched your replay back, and so like there was like it's like the distant future, but there's also a lot of like. I guess I don't know.
Technology. To me, that reminded me of Galaxy of the Guardians. Over the
Sure, yeah. But yeah, the music in this game banged. I will say that I was really like, because that is something that with Hotline Miami, I just remember like that being the first thing that stood out to me. I was like, this music goes, and like it hit. It hit in this game as well. Like, especially, I think my favorite track was when you were in that club.
Oh yeah,
that song was real sick. And then also when you play as the other character in the jail, that like there was some bangers.
I feel like that's a prerequisite for a game like this, where you're gonna be doing like a bunch of runs over and over. Like, you kind of got to have like a good soundtrack, right?
Yeah, I think the the music and the sound design blend it very well. Like, every time you restart, like the way it kind of rewinds the music as well. Like, the music just really fits this game.
Yes.
And so not only, does it have a good soundtrack, but the soundtrack matches the game. And I know I've said in a lot of games that we've played, I kind of turn the music off, like if it's not really hidden. But there were times where I was playing this game on my Switch like late at night, and I was trying not to wake my wife up, but I wanted to turn up the sound so I could hear the music. I was like, this game you kind of have to have the music to play it.
And then piggybacking off of that, just the look and like the aesthetic of the game. It's like it's pixel art, but it doesn't look like it's not like like I feel like. I don't know if you guys feel this way. I know when I talk to Dante about it, he always feels like it's kind of like more generic now. It's like super tired seeing like pixel art things, and just like you're tugging at nostalgia, and it just kind of is lame, and it's not as cool as it was, 4 or 5 years ago. But I feel like this game does pull it off, and there's like an attention to detail too, where like you're seeing subtle things, like you're seeing like the steam coming up out of the coffee, or the guy's tea mug when he's like sniffing it. When there's conversations going on, you're seeing subtle things like eyebrows like shifting up and down. Like when the dude is those two guys, his neighbors are getting tortured, and you're seeing like the fingernail being ripped out. And like it kind of reminded me a little bit of like I think this game, partly because of the 2D, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of like some of the detail and stuff you see in Dead Cells, but even I think to a degree more. Like I think there's more nuance in this, and like I was very impressed with the way the game looked.
Yeah, I think it has a little bit more resolution than just straight pixel art, because I think the backgrounds are have less of like a pixel look to them than the actual like sprite animations.
Mm-hmm.
But they work well together. It doesn't like look out of place or anything like that.
Yeah, and like one of the things sometimes I'm worried about with games like that is you lose some of the detail and some of the nuances with some of the characters, and not being able to tell what is what. But I don't feel like that was an issue, and especially it being a dark setting, like color wise, like color palette wise, there's a lot of dark colors, but I feel like there's still a lot of variety and like expression put on characters' faces and animations and things like that I think that the game still clearly conveys like certain nuances and like facial tics and or let me rephrase that, not facial tics but like expressions. I don't know, I was really impressed with that, because like I think the game looks striking if you're just looking at stills of it, but I think when you see it in action, I think it looks it's more impressive than it looks. You guys want to get into gameplay then? So I'll let you explain that, Greg.
So for gameplay, I guess the general flow of it is kind of, they put you into and you go from room to room, kind of dispatching enemies, but you've got this mechanic where you can slow down time. So you can use this in a couple ways. Use it to slow down time and reflect bullets back. You can use it to grab it. You can also use it to dash through enemies. Use that against the shield that they use. I guess you do have a dodge as well. That's another thing that comes into play.
Yeah, like a roll that like it's a cancelable roll that you're invincible while you're doing it in certain frames, but you can also like jump out of it or slash out of it or something like that.
Yeah, there's also items you can pick up in the environment and use those too.
And they're like things like smoke, like a smoke grenade. There's like I think a lamp, a fire extinguisher, a Molotov cocktail, a sticky bomb type deal. And those are like you can only hold one at a time, so you can't just like pick up and have an inventory of items, throwable items. You have to use it or use like lose it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
And then the way the game operates too is like you are basically very similarly to Hotline Miami, where you're basically on one side of the door. I think that I read a review that said the game lives in doorways, and you're basically on one side of a door, and you're planning on what to do to the people on the other side. And you're just basically a killing machine. You are a samurai, a katana wielding assassin. And I think they, I'll kick it to you, Trevor, but it starts off with a tutorial that kind of explains the general gist of like how combat begins, or how combat scenarios happen in this game. And I think it did a pretty good job of like explaining everything to you in that initial tutorial. Yeah,
it kind of walks you through like each thing you can do. Like, it freezes it for you and says, okay, now block this bullet. And you just kind of keep going through that until you add everything to your repertoire.
And so like the verbs of the game are you could like basically reflect bullets, you can just slash enemies straight up. And like Greg said, you have that slowdown mechanic that basically works on a meter that is slowly replenishing itself after you use it. And so you kind of can use it to get yourself out of like sticky situations where it's like, oh, you're like, you need to get a jump on a group of people. And I think that's pretty much it as far as combat. Like it's pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of nuances and like variety in it. And what were you about to say?
I was just gonna say like you there's no health bar. Anything kills you.
Yeah.
In one left to right on the map, and sometimes you go.
Yeah,
And later on, you kind of get a little bit more freedom as far as like how you want to take down like a specific room, because there's a couple different routes.
Yeah. So it's basically you start and you see like a couple of different rooms, and you start at one and you have to kill all of the enemies and get to the exit. And like Trevor said, where it's a one-hit kill, so you're basically trying to plan out, how do I clear out all these rooms of enemies and get to the exit. And after you complete that scenario, then you get to see, like I said, that CCTV kind of footage of your playthrough, your successful playthrough, because every time you die, you see like the tape basically rewind, and then it starts you back at the beginning of the encounter. And
how many times did you guys actually watch the?
I usually watched it. I would say I probably watched it at least half the times. I felt like I couldn't slow it down enough to watch the parts that I thought I did were cool.
There's a couple times where I was like, okay, that was kind of sick. I got to watch that again. But for the most part, I was.
I could have done without. Like I get it. Like it's definitely like setting a mood and kind of true to the setting and everything, but I could have done without that, like, or been able to turn that feature off personally.
Yeah, it felt cool at first, but after like you get halfway through the game, then it kind of was like a nuisance.
Yeah, like after you finished each level, if it asked you, like hit a button to show the replay or something like that, rather than just showing it automatically and having to skip it.
There was one thing I wanted to ask, since you guys had used controllers. So the gameplay was how did you use a right thumbstick to, I'm assuming, the way, like your direction?
No, you just use the left analog stick. You just kind of aim with that to aim at. But
the
right analog stick just moved the camera.
Oh
yeah.
See, on mouse and keyboard, I just used, it was WASD, or just moving left and right with that. But like wherever I was aiming, I could be running to the right, and if my mouse cursor was towards the left half of my computer screen, if I clicked, it swipes the other way. So that was like one of the things I had to get used to. And I didn't look, but I don't think I could control like how far camera.
That was the same on a controller too, where like you couldn't like scroll to the full like room next to you or whatever. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah,
when you were in a
because
scenario where you couldn't see all the rooms.
Yeah, because that was one of the things that what I was saying earlier about how it was similar to Hotline Miami. Is like there was times where like, because this game is very fast paced, and I would not be able to see if it was like a really long hall and I couldn't see everybody coming. If I'm running that way and they already are alert or aware of me and they're running towards me, they could shoot their gun.
Get the jump on you.
Yeah, they could shoot out of my view before and it'd be much harder for me to react.
Yeah, I ran into that a couple times, and it was kind of annoying because I felt like this game had I would say maybe about 4 or 5 times where I felt like it was just like cheap deaths, where it was like you wouldn't know until you had gotten to that this thing was going to happen. Like situations where like I'm running and then a cop car pulls up, and then I immediately have to, like, instead of going inside of this building, I have to deal with these cops. Or you're at the end of, what'd you say?
I know what you're talking about, that area, yeah.
Or you're at the end of, you cleared all the rooms out and you get to the end and then somebody comes out of a door.
Or
it's like,
there's a turret gun or something at the end.
Yeah. It was just a couple of times where it was just kind of like, I don't want to say it made it like difficult. It was just a little bit annoying where it was just kind of like, it's not. I don't even want to say it wasn't like it wasn't fun. It was just kind of like, why'd you do this? Like, I don't really know how to describe it. It was just kind of like a nuisance, if anything. where it's just like I cleared this room out, and then I got to the end, and now you just throw this random enemy at me. I got killed, and now I have to do all this thing over again because I didn't know that somebody was going to jump out in the last 2 seconds of this level. Cool. Yeah, and what were we about to say?
Oh, no, I was going to say, like, that is kind of annoying, but it also does, like, a few times, like, because you'll get into that situation sometimes where you might die from it, but there might be a situation where you notice it split second, and then you slow down, and then you reflect back. Yeah. So it leads to some cool situations as well, but it also can lead to, like, some, like, that's...
Yeah, unless you've used up all of your, your slow motion skill, and then you get to that point, and you're like, oh, well... That was the last enemy, but he got the jump on me.
Yeah. I think honestly, like, it was annoying. It wasn't, like, greatly impacted how I felt about this game. I did think that I don't remember as many instances of what my brother was talking about, but those instances were more frustrating because it's like, what's the point of me? Y'all know how I feel about cameras. What's the point of allowing me to control the camera if I can't see everything that I need to see? Yeah. Like, why am I running down this long ass hallway I can't see the end of it for you to, have somebody be able to shoot me before I can even see him. And like, it wasn't like I was trying to be like a bad boy or tough guy or anything, but I didn't really use slow motion a whole lot. And so like, I always felt like I reacted too slow in instances where like, I waited a split second too long to like slow motion and reflect a bullet. And so a lot of times I just opted I was rolling a lot more than doing slow motion for my playthrough.
And I feel like the game's balanced enough where you can get by pretty much the entire game without using slow-mo, but it's there if you just want to use it,
Oh boy, I would not even have attempted that the way I was
I think it's possible. Like I think, like, I don't know if there's a mode, but I think they could totally do a mode where it was like, okay, for this entire level you have this bar for slow motion, and once you use it, it's gone. And so like, instead of letting it replenish, I bet that could be like a cool like kind of challenge mode or like some type of thing that people do on streaming or something like that. I think that could be really cool.
I know they had a hard mode. I don't know what the hard mode entailed for it.
Yeah, that was something I was going to ask you too. Do y'all think this game was too easy?
It felt just about right to me, where it's like, it's not like it's not super challenging, but at the same time,
especially compared to Hotline Miami.
Oh well, I mean, it's definitely not as
Hotline I feel like Miami there were times in Hotline Miami where I got stuck, whereas with this game, on levels I got
slow
stuck
motion
at,
was
it was kind of like, okay, I know how I need to readjust, but with Hotline Miami, it was like, on those levels, you kind of had to do things, almost perfectly, or make less mistakes. Whereas this game was a little bit more forgiving.
Mm-hmm.
I also felt like the slow motion bar recharged
too fast.
Yeah. So that it helped. It helped to make it seem easier because you could just use it for one room and then wait for like 10-15 seconds, and you can have it for the next room.
And there is a timer too that goes on, but like I never ran into a situation where the timer went out on me.
I was thinking there would be something like a combo, or like something to incentivize you to kind of chain all these rooms together, but there really wasn't. And like, I don't know, like I thought maybe that could be something cool that happened, but there was nothing like that. The other thing, I didn't really feel like the AI was too smart in this game. Like you could literally clear out a room of people, and I know you're not doing like guns. It's not the same as Hotline Miami, but I felt like they're like, when you cleared out a room in Hotline Miami, I feel like a lot of times it's I guess because if you did it melee, I guess that's a whole completely different ball game. But I just felt like you could just clear out a room, go to the next room, clear out a room, you never had to worry about like aggroing the next group of people. And I kind of wish that they were more alert to what was going on or something like that.
Yeah, that's true. There was only a few instances like that, and it's barrels in the room, and like, but other than that, you could blow up, and they could be shooting, and they can't hear through the door.
Yeah.
Can I ask you guys something? This is something that this is like the main thing that I've been thinking about. I think that the combat in this game is cool. I just didn't like. I don't know if it's like I just didn't enjoy it as much, or maybe it was just a lot easier. But I didn't feel like it was as rewarding as I did in Hotline Miami. And that was like the biggest issue. That was a big issue that I did have with the game, where it was like, I feel like there's like the same amount of things that you can do, but it wasn't as fun/rewarding to clear out a room to me in this game as it was in Hotline Miami.
To me, for me, I got that sense, but I also got the opposite. Like, if I did something that was really cool, like, it just depended on like how the fights went out, and if I thought it was cool, I was kind of fun.
It's just like I felt like I never felt like I was disadvantaged in this game. Like, I felt like no matter what, I had I had slow motion, I had an invincible roll, and I had a sword that for whatever reason could reflect bullets. And like, I struggled to have the moments that I had in Hotline Miami, where there are 3 dudes running at me. I have 3 bullets. I miss one of them. I have to throw my gun, and then I'm kind of like backtracking, scrambling, because this guy is like has the jump on me, and he's more of a threat. Like, I don't feel like the enemies in this game are a threat, so I didn't have the same rush in combat in this game. Like, I felt like in Hotline Miami, I felt like you and the enemies were equals, and I didn't feel that way in this game. I felt like I was like God mode in this game.
Well, I mean, you were technically on a
but you know what I mean? Like, I just felt like I was so OP in comparison in this game that like combat scenarios, it didn't matter. Like, I'm not saying like I went through every single session on my first try. Like, I did die in this game and on all that, but it just felt like it was like I made a mistake and I got caught slipping, and not like, oh no.
Yeah, that's facts. That's totally fair. Because the one thing that I hated in this game, you know how like you can drop between floors?
Yeah.
I died so many times because I would try to roll, but it just drops me from the floor, and then like it would aggro somebody, and then I would get shot when I'm like not even like, that's not what I was trying to do. I hated that the dropping on the floor, and because like I always was trying to roll over there every time. But yeah, no, I agree. You kind of are. Most of the deaths do feel like they come from you.
It's totally fair. Like, it's not cheap at all. Like, I would prefer to feel like it was my fault I died, and not that it was some cheap stuff. So I will give it that, because I do feel like sometimes in Hotline Miami it is like you there are cheap deaths, but like it just
Hotline Miami, which I don't even know if we should be really comparing it this much to it, but in Hotline Miami, I do feel that I had to think more on if I got
you
stuck.
Had to plan
I would have
out,
to I need to do this differently, or I need to try. Maybe I should clear out this room first instead. But you don't really have to do that this game.
There are a couple instances where you can kind of branch off, where they have like, oh, you can access this room here and drop in here and come at it from a different way, but there were so few and far between that this game felt a little bit more linear in how you took out. So it didn't necessarily feel like Hotline Miami. It feels more like a puzzle in a sense, where you can kind of go at it, or at least more open-ended, maybe not like a puzzle, but you can approach it from different angles, where I felt like in this game it's like you always know what you have access to. You always have your sword. You always have slow motion, and the enemy, the items aren't randomized like they are in Hotline Miami, and it's more like, okay, you go to this room, and then you go to this room and this room, and then once you're in that third room, that's when it branches off, and so it felt a little bit more linear.
And by that point, then almost like you've killed 90% of the.
Yeah.
Since after you beat the level, and you're like, oh, I could have just retried it and did this way.
Yeah, exactly. Am I tripping? Like, do you guys, Trevor and Greg, you guys have been quiet. It just
I kind of get where you're coming from. I guess where there's like more, or well, I don't know. I guess are you trying to say there's like less instances of like improvisation in this game compared to like Hotline Miami?
yeah, like I kind of feel like combat is, in a sense, like is more limited. Even though you have more things at your disposal, I feel like it's just like you don't get that. I didn't get that same rush of like, oh, this encounter was hard. It was just like, oh, I messed up. And one of the things that I read a lot of reviews for this game, and one of the things that I saw a lot of people say, and I do agree with, is that like the back half of this game especially, it seemed like it went from being a little bit more like, do things how you want to do it, to like I feel like at the end there were only one or two ways to complete a section.
I felt like towards the end they gave you more options, but I guess I don't know.
Not necessarily, and I just felt like it was just like
Yeah, I've felt like that on a few levels, like towards the latter half, because there would be instances where, so you would enter a room and straight ahead, there's just a ton of enemies, and if you keep trying to go into those enemies head first and use all of your abilities, rolling, using your slow motion skill, deflecting bullets and all that, you'll never make it through. But then if you look up, you'll realize there's like a room above you that you can enter, and it gives you either like a Molotov cocktail or the smoke to where enemies can't see you, and it kind of makes the level trivial after that once you find that item.
And one of the levels I can think of is that one where you like the level where you're going, it's like the zigzag. I think it's like the elevator crashes and you're going zigzag down those stairs. And it's basically like, okay, there's two enemies here. I'm going to come down. I have to take care of those two enemies. But immediately when I go down the other stairs, I'm going to, aggro the next person. And it was just like, there was no, they were even giving you items. Like you'd kill these two enemies and then there's an item behind them. And then obviously you're using that item for the next person. And then the other one I could think of is when you're actually going down the elevator in that last facility where it's like each floor was its own scenario, and so the elevator door would open and then the lights would come on into that floor. I felt like that was super, just like you have to figure out the correct way to clear out this place. And I didn't feel like it was like as improvisation, like as much left that much creativity as the earlier levels had, I guess I could say.
No, I agree on that one, because like usually that scenario when the door opens, if you don't dodge right away or like a roll, like you get shot. Like so you were kind of forced to do over and over if you messed up.
Yeah, I mean I can kind of see that. I guess it didn't bug me as much, and I mean Hotline Miami is definitely like a harder game, and you definitely have like more tools in like bad situations. But yeah, I mean I don't know. I guess it's kind of like I don't expect the same thing out of it, but I guess it's kind of natural to try and draw.
Yeah, like it's like it's weird because it's like I think combat in this game is good, but it doesn't hit me or like connect with me the same way it did with that game. And I'm drawing, like the differences between those two games, where it's like I never felt like I was in danger or like. Even like the bosses in it, and like I like literally every combat scenario, it was like, why did I messed up and I didn't slow motion in time, or I should have rolled and then slow motion, or just something simple like that, where it was never like, and I guess that's like a good way, that's good balancing. Like I think I would rather feel like it was my fault in every scenario, and for whatever reason, I'm very able and capable of accepting that on a platformer when it's like, oh, I mistimed my jump and I died, versus like in a game like this where it's just kind of like, I wish there was like I had a sense of hopelessness in combat sometimes. I wish that it seemed like the combat scenario ahead of me was very daunting, but it just never felt that way. And that was the thing, like, and like even and I don't even know if maybe I would have enjoyed combat more if like maybe they like I was thinking about like what if they introduced like the slow motion mechanic later in the game, like maybe you're playing, and then 3 or 4 levels into it, then you get introduced to slow motion mechanic, and so like I can see what it was like before I had this, and then I can see what it's like afterwards. But it's just like you have everything that you start off with is what you have at the very end of the, like you don't get anything more, and it just like it I don't think it ever gets any more challenging. They just throw more enemies at you. That is the difficulty, and it's not necessarily like the enemies get any like a special way of taking them out,
right,
or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And like I said, I think the combat in this game is good. It just wasn't challenging. It wasn't what I was looking for. It wasn't like rewarding for me, I guess.
And in Hotline Miami, isn't there like a little bit of unpredictability to like how the AI reacts to things in that game too, compared to like this, where I feel like you kind of know how every enemy is going to react to specific situations. Where like Hotline Miami, sometimes you just go in their way. The next run you do it, they don't run the same way.
I mean, you can kind of kite them in a sense, but then like another thing too is just like it using a gun gets you different, like aggro's people in a way that melee weapons don't. Well, in this game you don't get to use a gun, so like Trevor was saying, like you would think if the enemies heard their homies shooting a gun, they would go investigate, but they never do. So like you can literally like kick in the door, reflect the bullet, go to the next room, wait till the guy is doing his his path till he gets behind the door, kick that door, kill him, and then you have like it just was a lot simpler.
It's weird rules, right? Like they only react to gunshots in the same room, and then the only thing that draws people from different rooms is explosions, and that's really it.
There's another instance for how, I guess, dumb the AI was to me in this game. Was there was a level where you can turn off the laser whenever you want, and you could get their attention, turn the laser off, and then they'll start running towards you, turn it back on, and kill them, and then. But as soon as you turn it on, the person behind him will stop running towards you. But then you just turn the laser off. He just seen his teammate get disintegrated by it, but he'll still run towards you. Just turn it right back on. Like, so that was another instance of how.
And that conveyor belt with the crusher too.
Yeah, that one too.
Yep. Same concept.
Yeah. So I like I said, like I think the combat in this game was fun. It just wasn't like rewarding, I guess is what I'm. And it's a problem for me because that's like the main part of this game, personally, for me. Like the aesthetic of this game is awesome. The music in this game is awesome. Like the vibe of the game is cool. But like the combat just doesn't. It's like almost like there. It's almost there for me, but it's just like that's the thing. And to me, that is the most important thing in like this game because that's the story in this game. I don't like whatever. Like.
Yeah.
It's nonsensical. So like I just was like, and I guess that's the thing that's why I was like trying to comparing it to Hotline Miami so much because it's just like it does these other things that this game that I really like does well, and it's just falling short on this one thing. I mean, even the story, like the Hotline Miami story, is also nonsensical. And the thing I will say is that like I never felt like the story was like I didn't feel like it was important in Hotline Miami, but I for whatever reason in this game, I felt like the guy, Justin Standard, like he wanted the story to be important in this game, and they make some decision, or he makes some decisions in this game about how he wants to present things, and I feel like the whole like, are we done talking about combat?
I mean, I think we pretty much kind of went over all the.
So like. I feel like the whole back half of the game is like a lot of delivering story beats, but like I never knew what was going on, and I never felt like it never felt like it mattered because it never felt like it was clear. It was super like obscure and kind of like I don't even want to say going over my head. It's just like a lot of times it was just like I don't know what's going on. It was very what's that show? Twin Peaks. Lost, where it's just
it
like
never really came full circle.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it tries to, but it's never to the point where like, oh, that's why this person did this at the very beginning, or there was never really like a huge callback to something that happened significant in the earlier half of the game.
And it's a shame because I do feel like this game does, I mean, a much better job than of creating characters than like Hotline Miami. Like the relationship with Zero and that girl is kind of like interesting. The relationship, like even some of the dialogue in the game, like did you guys? So this game was very similar to Gunpoint in a sense where you could have multiple options of how you wanted to talk to somebody, and like they react to what you say, and you're like kind of just having a conversation or whatever. But you could also like be impatient with them and just like be rude and deliver like a rude line or whatever too, and that was based on a timer, and that was a cool way of like introducing some agency and just like how you wanted your interaction with these people to go.
Yeah, and kind of you as the player, a lot of times when you see a lot of dialogue, you're just mashing A to skip through it all. So if you're doing that in this game, it kind of
you're
reflects
rude to
that. Yeah.
Yeah, and like there was some. Did you guys do any of the trees or like? I can think of one encounter I had with the girl in one of the first ones where I told her I was a cosplayer.
Oh yeah, I did that too.
Yeah, where you tell her you're a cosplayer, and then you get stopped by the police, and then they're like, "Hey, where are you coming from?" And then she like covers for you, and that's really cool. And then you see her later in the game, and then she's like, "I looked up that anime you told me, and I didn't find it." And you're just like, "Oh yeah, of course you never heard of it." And there's like cool dialogue. Like you have a psychiatrist that you're talking to, and like you can like respond and give like a talk about like the dreams or nightmares that you're having, or you can like kind of talk about your day with him, and you can be short with him and or not. There's a little girl like your neighbor that you can interact with, and you can be nice to her, rude to her, and like I really enjoyed like the moment to moment encounters with these individual people, but like ultimately one of the things I read that like it didn't really majorly affect the story, like there was going to be some holes too where like you had this interaction with somebody, but no matter how the interaction panned out, the next time you saw them, they were like not going to call back to that interaction, but call back to your whatever happened that day. So it wasn't necessarily like the greatest, but it was cool to just like be able to have some moments with some characters, but ultimately like it amounted to nothing because I didn't really feel like I knew where the story was going at any point in time.
And I feel like he probably like that was like a conscious decision just because development manpower. Like, well, obviously I don't want to like have this story go in a bunch of different ways, options or whatever person making it. So maybe that was just like a thing of like he just wanted you to pay attention to the story, so he put that in, but he didn't want to go the whole way and like.
Sure, like yeah, I'm definitely not faulting him. Like I had no idea it was made by one person, so that makes this like super, like a major accomplishment. So I'm not trying to take anything away, but like a lot of what it seemed like was like, you'll find out in the DLC.
Yeah, kind of.
Or, in the sequel. And it's just kind of like, man, like, do we have to do this? Can we have a little bit of closure? A little bit? I'm trying to feel like, I feel like we covered, like, everything, most of the things that I wanted to talk about. There was only a couple of other things that I wanted to point out, but I don't know if you guys have anything else that you guys wanted to touch on.
Nothing in particular. I think we're kind of...
There was one thing I was going to come back to. It was when y'all were talking about I guess aiming in the game using a controller versus mouse and keyboard. And while I was playing on the Switch Lite, I don't know if this is the same on controller, but there was really only one weapon you had to aim with, like with the right stick, and that was, I don't know what it was called, but it was like a detonation type.
Oh, like the remote mine thing?
Yeah. And because any other weapon, any other projectile weapon that you had, you basically threw it in whatever direction you were facing, and then if like there was an enemy in front of you, it kind of auto aimed. But with the the remote detonator, you pretty much had to aim with that, because if you didn't, it would just throw it like
straight
whatever.
ahead.
Yeah. And so if you had an object in front of you and you were trying to throw it like straight up, for enemies that are like on the floor above you, you basically just end up throwing it down the hall.
Well, I mean, I had situations where, like, I guess maybe we didn't use items the same way. I really liked using items in this game, and there were situations where I threw items upstairs, or like I was standing like on top of a car and I threw it down at somebody like down forward. So there was like a little bit of aiming required for some of that stuff, and I don't know, like it wasn't ideal, because a lot of times too, like especially like I can think of like when you're at the prison and you're sitting on a cop car and there's two enemies in front of you. I wanted to throw it at the person in front, but the person in the back, but it always auto locked to the person in the front. And that was a little bit annoying, because the person in front had a shield and I wanted to throw it at the person that had a gun out and about. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like it wasn't like, I mean, it worked. I'd say more often than not, it worked. I would say like 80 to 90% of the time I got the item where I needed to go. So it wasn't like a big deal for me, but like it was like, I could understand why it'd be annoying playing on keyboard and mouse, where you're like, oh crap, like I guess I need to move my mouse. Yeah. Was that the fix, Trevor?
So no, on keyboard and mouse, the throwing stuff I didn't have any issue with. There was literally just a slash. Not realize that my mouse isn't like past the midpoint section, and so when I'm running, I roll at somebody. There was a couple times where I'd roll at them and it'd be the last enemy too. I'd roll at them, and especially if I'm going up the stairs too.
Mm-hmm.
I'd roll at them and I'd slash, but I'd slash the wrong way, and then you can't slash twice enough before they can kill me. But as far as the throwing, I didn't notice having to really aim with the throwing. As long as I was past that half point section, it was kind of auto, which I was a little bit disappointed, because there were some times where I wanted to throw.
You want to choose what person?
Yeah, and so the fact that it was kind of calibrated or set to basically auto, essentially, it was a little disappointing. But yeah, I didn't have any issues with the throw.
Can we talk about some more nitpicks I had?
Well, was there something else that you're discussing after?
No, I mean, if you got something, you can say something.
I just want to discuss how broken the dragon was.
Oh, we'll talk about that after. Because we can end with something good. Can we talk about how bad that motorcycle level was? That little throwback to Battletoads.
I didn't think it was that bad.
That level was trash.
Yeah, because like that part was. I just felt like this was a waste of time. Like it was, it was too long.
Too long for sure. Like as much as I was saying, I didn't like the combat was good. It wasn't great. It was like, I feel like the second half of the game, it felt a little bit more, I don't want to say rushed, but like half-baked, well as thought out ideas. Like I felt like the level design kind of dropped a little bit. I felt like some of the I do felt like the dude just like, okay, I'm gonna throw more enemies at them, and like it just didn't feel like, it felt like it was rushed, and I didn't necessarily feel that way in the first half of the game. And so like that level in particular, it felt like we had to think of some way to have this long drawn out scenario dealing with those two characters, Zero and V. And I don't know. I didn't like that level at all. And the other thing that I wanted to say was the stealth sequences in this game were trash too.
Yeah, those sucked.
Yeah, and it was just like those didn't seem well thought out. Like there were so many times where you're just standing around waiting.
You know what?
And like,
now that I think about it, I forgot all about those stealth levels.
Like
they're not memorable at all.
Exactly, and like I think there was 2 or 3 times when they I think for sure 2, maybe 3, but it just was like you're just standing behind a door, just waiting and waiting and waiting, and like it. I don't know, like. it felt cool at first. I think sneaking into the nightclub, I think sneaking in was really cool. But like trying to sneak past all those police officers in that jail was not like, it wasn't the move.
I wanted to ask, did you guys sneak past them all?
I killed him.
Yeah,
I tried to, but it was just too much waiting.
I felt like I was like, after I did that level and I like killed him, I was like, normally I would have played that, but I just didn't really see a way to not have to kill them, like to not have to kill at least one.
Yeah. I don't know. Like I was disappointed because like I felt like that could have been something that they did to kind of maybe stand out, and maybe I wouldn't have as much like going into a scenario being able to stealth or combat would have been really cool, and like but I just don't think stealth in this game was like a viable option. Like, and like the few times that they had it just kind of was like, this is, I don't even say it's not fun, because like stealth doesn't necessarily have to be fun. It just wasn't effective. It felt like
it was underwhelming.
Yeah, and then the last one was like just the minecart section. I thought that part was kind of like, like that was short, so I didn't like hate it, but it was just kind of like, ugh.
See, I actually liked it. It reminded me of Donkey Kong.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, man, this is kind of cool, but it is one of those. It was one of those things where it's like, it was that type of scenario where we were talking about earlier, where it's like there's only really one way to beat it, and if you mess up once, you'll probably get it within the next try or two, because you have to do the same. There's only one way to beat that part, so it's just, meaning it wasn't that difficult.
Yeah, like yeah, but like so, like I said, it wasn't like super hard or whatever, but I just didn't really care for it. But it was like the perfect length, like it was enough of it to leave an impression, but not too much where I'm just like, can I get over this? Unlike the motorcycle section.
It was just a nice change of pace. Yeah, that change of pace versus the motorcycle, man, because like the whole game, the bullets are coming at you mad fast, and you have slow motion. And then they switch it up to the motorcycles where you're technically should have less chance to react to them. They slow it down too much, and you literally can deflect everything. And then on top of that, they have a timer that you can see for when they can shoot again. And yeah, the motorcycle level was trash. I hated it all around.
Okay, and you wanted to talk about, did you guys have anything else negative? No? All right. Well, let's talk about it, Trevor.
I just thought, so they introduced the character. You think that you're like the dragon the whole time? Because
basically the news, like every time you complete a mission or kill a target. At the end of the day, your character is like kind of in his apartment just watching the news, and they talk about some what happened in the killing, and then they dubbed the killer the dragon. So you're assuming that you are the dragon, and then you get to actually meet the dragon, and you get to play one level as the dragon.
And if you think the slow motion that you have on your main character is broken, they took it to a whole nother level. This dude, instead of having the option to throw items, his right click or whatever button that you guys use on the controller is he's got this move where it slows down time, and he can dash probably about like 20 to 25 feet, killing anything in sight, and I'm pretty sure he becomes immune to any bullets as well. And just playing him was so fun, because you just dash through like 4 or 5 people, and you can dash through laser beams, and you also dash through the sentry turrets that kill you. I don't know. That level was just so fun. I was like, man, if I have to play this dude, I'm just gonna let him dash through me.
Yeah, I mean, like it wasn't like there was a timer on that ability, but he still had like slowdown and a normal roll, and his slash attack. But then instead of, like you said, instead of picking up items, he had this additional ability that was just super sick. And yeah, that section was super fun to play. And like that was like one of the times where like it was super rewarding to play that, because it was like, oh, this character is even more broken than the character I'm playing, but it's fun.
and I think one of the cons of playing him, which is something that I found out, was that after you use that dash or whatever it is, you can't immediately slash.
Yeah, that's true. You couldn't regular slash. So if you dashed, killed multiple people, and landed right in front of somebody, which did happen to me, you're pretty much dead.
Not if you slow motion and roll, baby.
Unless you dodge, yeah. But if you don't realize that, I didn't really, you're not used to that. So like, I got killed like a couple times just because I'm like, oh, I should be able to. I'm trying to slash right after.
Yeah. The only other thing I could think of is like I kind of wish, and maybe it's just because it's the same side scrolling game, but I've been playing a lot of Dead Cells lately, and I was just like, man, I wish I could double jump, or I wish I could just jump and roll. Like I wish this game felt like a game that would have those as movement options, but you couldn't do either of those, and I was just like, damn, and it didn't.
I guess because there's not like a lot of verticality to most of them, and he has a wall jump, so maybe they're like, that's good enough.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I understand why, but it's just kind of like, I wish he had this option. There was a couple of times, too, I don't know if this happened to you guys, where, like, I run into a room, and, like, I would go into slow motion, and I would swipe at something, and it would still hit me, because it's, like, just above where my blade hit. And those were so annoying to die that way sometimes. Whereas, like, I timed it and everything, and it just, like, it was just above my my blade's reach.
Yeah, that was one thing that kind of got on my nerves a couple of times, where the timing of like your roll and when you come out of it is super. Because there was one level where there was an enemy. There were two riot shield enemies and a guy with a shotgun, like
at the top of the stairs.
Door. Well, they were behind a door, and the first enemy, like they didn't patrol, so they weren't moving. But the first enemy behind the door wasn't standing in the doorway to the point where you could hit him with the door and get that quick kill. So you had to open the door and then slash to hit him, and then still use your slow motion and roll in order to get to the other two enemies, and they're just barely outside of your roll's reach, to the point where like you have to, like, you can't release your roll too soon, or else you'll end up getting hit by the first or the second riot guy's shield. It's like, I don't know. There are some things in this game where there's a lot of room for error, but there were situations like that where sometimes the enemies, I don't know,
reacted differently or did different things.
It was just like the timing had to be more precise.
There was one for me where it was like you go down this, like you're coming down a hallway, and there's two enemies on the other side of the door. One has a riot shield that's not patrolling, and the other one is a shotgun enemy that's patrolling. And then also that room leads up and down stairs, and so at the top of the stairs there's another guy with a gun. And so I always hit the door to kill the guy with the shotgun that was patrolling. Then I would roll through the riot shield guy, turn around and slash him. And then it was just a matter of how quickly I did that to determine where the guy at the top of the stairs was. Because sometimes he'd still be at the top of the stairs. Sometimes he'd be on my level. Sometimes he would be on the stairs. And so like it was just one of those levels that was really long. So I couldn't see, like, it was really wide. So I couldn't see everything on like one go through. So it was like he would be on the edge. Like when I'm running to the door, it was just far enough that like he wasn't on the screen. So I couldn't guaranteed to know where he was until I did the roll and killed the guy with the riot shield. That's when he'd pop up on the screen, and it was just like 50%. It was like 33% chance he was at the top of the stairs, 33% chance he was coming down the stairs, and 33% chance he was on my level. So like every time it was something different, and that was a little bit annoying because it also depended. Like one of the things too that did add a little bit of variability, but it was a little bit frustrating, was like when you died, the enemy's location when you started would not necessarily be like their loop was still going, and so like they may not be in the same spot. So like maybe like the way you start this scenario is you kick the door in on somebody and you kill the person behind the door, but they're on a patrol route. And then sometimes like if you've ran the level like 7 times, you got really far, and then you die, maybe that 8th time you started, he's no longer behind the door, he's like way further on. and that was a little bit frustrating too. Where it was just like there was a couple times where I'm ready to go. I have my pattern down, but then it like kind of takes you out of your groove because they're not in their spot that they need to be in anymore.
Yeah, that happened to me, and it's just kind of it's like a minor inconvenience, but yeah, it can be a little annoying.
Yeah, Hotline Miami would never. Yeah, it was just a little bit annoying, like especially on the later levels when they were like a lot longer. So it was a little bit frustrating where it's like, like granted you're spending at most 3 minutes on a level or on a section. So it wasn't like it was like you lost 10 minutes of game time or whatever, but like, like you have your rundown, I've died 12 times or whatever, but I've got it perfected. And then it's like, okay, you're ready to go. And then it's like, damn, I got to wait 15 seconds for this enemy to get right here so that I can start this thing up. So yeah, that was annoying sometimes. Anything else?
The only thing I'd leave off with sentiments is this game, it was a mashup between Hotline Miami, two games, which we...
So, Greg, great game, great experience?
I'd say good game, great experience.
Okay. Trevor? Jones? Sorry, Lyric? Great game, great experience?
It's a fine game, fine.
Brother, great game, great experience. Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Good game, good experience. Like I said, I I just can't shake it from that other game. I just can't. It's just like it was there on the music, it was there on the aesthetics, it was there on the convoluted story, but it was just like the combat that was holding it back, and for me, and I just I for the four of you or three of you, would you guys recommend this game to somebody?
I would. I think most people would probably dig the. I mean, I guess it depends on how much they've played, or like if they played a lot of Hotline Miami. If that's the case, they may not enjoy it as much. But I think it's
rephrase that. Let me rephrase that. Would there be a scenario where you would recommend this game instead of Hotline Miami to somebody?
No. Yeah, I would. If I was gonna
100% of the time, you would always go Hotline Miami first.
I would preface the Hotline Miami thing as like, hey, this game's kind of hard. So as long as you're cool with that difficulty, then I would say you're good. But like, if you want to maybe like an easier like similar experience, then this would be like the alternative.
Okay. What about you, Trevor? Either, whatever. Who cares?
Well, I don't think. I mean, I could recommend the game if it was on sale. If it wasn't, I don't think. To me, I would hate to have somebody get this game for $15 and then they're not like, they're disappointed with it, because I feel like a lot of people could be with it.
This at $15, you think is like it's not living up to what? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think $10.
$10?
I would say like if it's on sale for $10 less, and like someone's like, hey, I need what's a good game? Not too expensive, and I would recommend this game. Then if it was on sale.
But otherwise, you would recommend Hotline Miami? Okay.
Even if Hotline Miami was full price and this game was on sale, Hotline Miami.
Dang. Do you think, Greg? Do you agree? Would you recommend this game like even at full price, or do you think that, like I'm not trying to say this game isn't worth $15 or whatever? Like,
I wouldn't recommend it at full price, but I mean,
dang.
I don't know, maybe because I think it is $20 normally, right? At $20, I'm 15. Okay, that's 15. Okay, yeah.
I got it at $15, and I'm not like super mad, but like I'm like, dang man, I wish I didn't miss that sale.
Yeah.
You know what? It's just kind of like not to. We're gonna hammer this. We're gonna hammer this home. Actually, we're gonna hammer this home. How long did it take you guys to beat this game?
I think like 4 hours.
What about you, brother?
I would probably say around the same time, but usually like this game, like another cue as to why I don't think it's worth that. If I would have liked this game, I would have not taken. I think I beat it over the course of like 3 or 4 days, and to me it's something that should be, you can knock it out in probably 2 days. Really, if you like really enjoyed it. So I guess I didn't really like enjoy it.
And what about you, Trevor? Kind of, how long did it take you to beat this game?
According to my Switch, it said I finished it in 5 hours.
And would you recommend this game? So y'all were leaving me hanging earlier. Okay. I'm out here saying like, why? You're like, it's not the same as Hotline Miami.
I don't know what you would be looking for in order to recommend this game. Like, if somebody were to say, like, I'm looking for a game, but I want it to be like XYZ, I don't know how I would fit Katana Zero into that without suggesting
I'm looking for a violent game with banging tunes and
Miami.
and a convoluted story with some vaporwave vibes.
Like,
I'm looking for a game with style.
I mean, this is definitely a game for this podcast because it's kind of like a hidden gem, but
it could have stayed hidden.
It's a hidden circle execute.
So like I think I'm with you. I was 3 or 4 hours in. I think like I guess ultimately for me, I would be okay, if to recommend this to somebody. Like I'm kind of with Greg where it's like Hotline Miami is a more challenging game. I will say that I think this game, both games have style. I think this game like is looks cooler, like visually looks cooler. I think it's easier, so I think that is what it has going for it. I wouldn't have a problem recommending this game for $20. I will say though that I think the big thing for me is I don't foresee myself playing this game again.
Not even for the DLC. You want to check it out?
Is it free?
I don't know if it's free or not.
Nah. And include that $20 price
like
tag
if it was
over.
free, yeah, I might check out the DLC. But like, I'm not replaying the game. Where like, I did not have a problem doing that with Hotline Miami.
I got you. I see
and I feel like that is like the biggest thing. Where it's like, I had my like, knowing what I know, like the dialogue choices aren't going to really, greatly affect. They're not going to affect the outcome of the game. It's just being able to see some more flavor text,
right?
So, and like the combat to me wasn't deep enough or rewarding enough for me to just be like, I gotta, get that feeling again, so like it's just kind of like, I think this game would be something that is like, you had somebody over and you're trying to kill some time, you could maybe boot this game up and let them play it while you're, getting ready or whatever, but I think that would be about it.
Like, I know this is, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
I'm kind of like shocked at your $20 price point because isn't Cuphead $20? Like, if someone's like, I want to spend $20, I'm like, get Cuphead over this game.
I guess it depends on what kind of experience.
I don't have Cuphead.
You know what I mean? Cuphead is definitely a better game for sure.
I don't have a problem. Like I hate to say like this game isn't deserving of, and actually we are mistaken. This game is $15 full price, so like that was on me. But like I kind of don't want to say like some game doesn't deserve to be sold at a certain price point, because that's not for me to say. Personally, I can say what I'm comfortable paying, but I think that this game, like for $20, isn't like the worst thing or whatever. But maybe like Greg's saying, like, $15 full price, and if the DLC is $5, like that's a $20 investment. But that would be fine, right?
I think some people can appreciate it at that $15 price, but I wouldn't personally recommend it. I would recommend it when it's on sale. But I don't see that people wouldn't value this or the $15. I can see there's definitely reasons why it would be.
Sure. So the moments you guys had in this game when you're like, I did something cool and I want to rewatch my replay, it wasn't worth it.
I mean, there was like, when it was cool, it was cool. Like there's definitely some times where, like I just barely like dodged a bullet or another guy popped up and then I was able to get him, so like it did have some cool situations like that. But I don't know. I didn't feel bad about the money I had spent on it. That's one thing. But yeah,
that's good. Yeah, like you don't want to regret your purchase.
Yeah. I definitely enjoyed it. I mean, there were some issues, but for the most part, I liked it more than I expected to, because usually when I see games with 8-bit, or not 8-bit, but like kind of like sprite art, I just kind of automatically assume they're all going to be a certain way, and I just kind of like,
And it's gotten to that point too, because like I like that was what I was saying about when I talked to Dante and stuff. It's just kind of like there are so many games now that doing that it's no longer special or like unique. So like you have to do more than just look like an old game in order to like grab people now. Where I felt like before, like if like 10 years ago or 8 years ago, like it was like, oh cool, like this thing is coming back. But now it's back and like it's kind of played out, honestly. And so like but I do think that this game looks good. I like I said, I don't think combat is bad. So like I think to some people it does deliver on everything. It just I guess I feel like for the majority of us, or for all of us, it just doesn't quite hit everything we wanted to.
So speaking of Dante, he has to compare this game versus, I guess, as far as value goes.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really remember a lot of Hotline Miami 2. I remember it dragging in places and like doing things. It no longer was confined. Like I remember a lot of levels were no longer confined to being inside of a building. And they were outside, and like I think there were flashbacks to like and those were weak spots of the game. So honestly, maybe I would say this game is better than those sequences. But like that's like saying like those weren't like all over the place. So it'd be like comparing, like the vehicle sequence in this game to like Hotline Miami, where it's just like not really fair. There were some cool things they introduced. They introduced like I think they introduced a role. They levels are a lot bigger, so like you start running into the issue that you may run into in this game in Katana Zero, where it's like I can't see the whole map. So like there's no telling what's over there, and those sections were frustrating. They also introduced dual wielding and being able to play, I think, co-op. I think it was co-op. So there's like some cool things, but when I talk about Hotline Miami, I'm like, let it be known I'm talking about the first game. I'm not talking about both games. Does that answer the question? Do you guys have anything else? Do you regret, Trevor? Do you regret not picking Super Hot now?
Nope. Nope.
Well, where can people find you at, Greg?
You can find me on Twitter at Boombox Hero, and on Twitch at twitch.tv/Magnegro with a Z.
I'm gonna ask.
What's up?
Streaming.
So I wasn't streaming for like a week because my PC was down, but when I do stream, it's mostly Street Fighter, a little bit of Hearthstone. And then I did stream some Into the Breach. But yeah, next time I gotta let you know. Heavy. I gotta let you know next time I stream.
Yeah, for sure. Because I love watching people play that game. I think right after we recorded that episode, I was home alone and I just put on a stream and I just sat on my couch in my living room and was just watching Into the Breach.
I'm still trash at it, but I keep playing it though.
You still playing it?
Yeah, I still play it.
Did you get a Switch yet?
I do have it, but we haven't given it to the kids yet, so like I can't play it. But yeah, but this week
you gonna introduce them to Enter the Breach though?
Yeah, first purchase,
day one. Where can people find you at, Lyric?
You can find me on the.
You ain't streaming anything?
Well, I've been playing all the games on the Switch.
Well, I guess when we get to some games, your game for next year.
Oh yeah,
that won't be a Switch game.
Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, because I was looking forward to playing more Switch games or more games on Switch.
And what about you, Trevor? Where can people find you at?
On Twitter at TrevBino.
Are you streaming anything? Do you stream?
Occasionally, but I haven't really. Like if I stream it. Call of Duty, but I'm not really streaming.
Well, I appreciate you being on for this episode.
Oh, I know the fans missed out on me, so I'm always here for them. I do it for the cause. And I'll be
we,
back.
we appreciate it. And you can find me on Facebook and Twitter at Potato Salad. If you like tuning into Missed Checkpoints to find out about hidden gems, cult classic, and indie games, then share us with your friends, family, and the Not Shitty subreddit community. Comment on our Facebook page, add us on Twitter, leave us a review, preferably 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so we can appear higher in the leisure category. We enjoy doing this. It's a lot of fun, and also love hearing from you guys. So tell us what you like, what games that we play that you like, what you agreed with, what you disagreed with, what games you think we should play next. We have some exciting news, I guess you could say, for 2021, but we'll hold that to our next episode. And I think we have our list up for next year is up, right, Trevor?
Yeah.
I think you posted that. So we got some bangers. We got Shenmue in January. We got Mega Man Battle Network in February. We have a doubleheader in March. We got Cadence of Hyrule and Carrion. And then in April we have Gravity Rush. So be on the lookout for those if you guys are playing along at the crib. Then make sure to pick those up. Probably want to emulate Mega Man Battle Network because how much was it going for on eBay, Trevor? Like $50?
Oh yeah.
Do you have that game, Greg?
No. I pretty much sold
okay.
most of my stuff.
Okay, I got that game on. I got that game, so I think I might be the only one playing it with a physical copy. But yeah, there's a game that I want to play that it's like been. We used to own it. I every time I go to my parents' house, I look for it, and I can never find it. And it's been a game that I wanted to play since we first started doing this show. And I think I might just bite the bullet and just be like, I'm gonna have to do this, play this on the emulator or something. I'll tell you offline. Okay. What about it? Yeah, that game it's a banger. You'll see though. You'll see. With that, we're Missed Checkpoints and we're out. Peace.